Well, hello, everybody. Welcome to the Why It's Great patron-only podcast, and we're back, and I am excited to be sitting here ready to have a conversation with my brother Andrew, as always, and it's been a while since we've done one of these, and so we just thought we could loosely talk about the John Mayer episode that dropped today, Friday, but we also, haven't talked in general in a while, so I thought we could just have a conversation, record it, and release it for all of your listening pleasure. So let's stick with some formalities for a minute here. Go ahead and do comment of the week, but then after that, we'll just keep it loosey-goosey. And Andrew, you have a comment for me. Right before we started recording, you said it was brutal, so I can't wait to hear what it is.
Okay, actually, I just found another one I like. I'll do both. This is the one I just found on the Irishman Explained video, which by far is our most viewed. Not only is it our most viewed, it's our most brutal in terms of comments. But I mean, I think they're outweighed by the good comments. This commenter says, in reference to you, Dan, who is speaking in the Irishman Explained video, "This guy is exactly like the 'you wouldn't understand Rick and Morty because you aren't smart enough' crowd," which I thought was perfect.
What's funny about that is I don't watch Rick and Morty.
Which you should, because it's amazing. Unless you're not smart enough. No.
Maybe I'm not.
Yeah. No, you're not one of those people. But then the comment I said was brutal was this. "Your appearance is a major distraction. People do not want to look at you. You are not an attraction. Use voice only."
Yeah, I remember reading that one.
That was a week ago.
Yep, that's probably comment number, 20 on my appearance?
It's so weird
so
that
far?
just showing your face in a video essay, people think you are making a statement about how you view yourself. It's like putting yourself in the video isn't a "you must like the way I look." It's just another way to film something.
No, Andrew, I think I am an attraction.
Like, can you imagine if people did that when you're just talking to them in person? It's like, "Oh, hey, how's it going, Jeff?" And then Jeff's like, "Whoa, why are you talking to me face to face? Do you think you're an attraction? Your face isn't the main part of this conversation, okay?" And I'm a little offended.
Yeah. Yeah. That one, I don't know. I'm not taking those seriously anymore. I give them literally zero thought at this point, which is probably good. Otherwise, I'd probably, have to cry myself to sleep. Andrew's still reading more comments.
It's amazing.
There's some good ones in there.
Yeah. The Irishman one you can't keep up with. On our other videos, I at least try and like or comment something a little bit to engage, but the Irishman one would be like spend a large part of your day keeping up with these and having a dialogue.
Yeah.
I've had some good backs and forths on our various videos with people, just like sharing, like especially the Ad Astra one. I've had a lot of people disagree with like our analysis of the film, but like say what they mean, and I've been able to counter, and it's been friendly. Some haven't been friendly, but oh well.
Yeah. Thanks for doing that, by the way. I know that that's kind of a YouTube best practice, but I don't always have the time.
Yeah.
So I have a lot going on.
Yeah.
Yep. But this week's I never know what to call it. This week's video, I guess, is what to say, is about John Mayer. And you wrote this one how long ago?
What is time?
I know.
It was definitely written pre-COVID.
Yes.
Because I
absolutely.
wrote, and that's another thing I want to say about the video is I haven't watched all of your final cut of it. I just watched the beginning, like the change you made. But I think it turned out really well. It's just that for those of you who watch it on Friday, you're going to see a version of it that was not the way it was written. The spirit of it is, like the way it opens and closes, but I had some really clever visual transitions and styles that I was really excited to see if we could try and do. But that involved us working in front of the green screen, and that just became impossible with COVID. And then the more time elapsed, the more we realized not only can we not meet together because of, the limitations of the pandemic, but just also like time-wise, we just can't get together. But right. I think it turned out really well still. I mean,
yeah,
that goes to the heart of writing. If the actual nuts and bolts and structure and idea of your video is clear, and like that side of it is clear, like the structure, the argument, the nitty gritty, the visuals and aesthetics can improve it and can add to it. But I mean, not having those doesn't, and it's not like there's no visual style. I just mean physical visual, like the actual filming us.
Right. And this is one of those things. So a couple things in response. One is something I've been kicking around, and patrons, you can let me know if this is something you want. But I've been kicking around putting our scripts on the Patreon page and having that be like another perk of being a patron, as you get to...
I'd have to brush them up a little bit. Sometimes I write those and I know they're just going to be shot, so I don't really care about the grammar or the... I'm not proofreading them.
Yeah, I think, I would definitely give you a heads up. But let me know if that's something that you would enjoy seeing. And the reason I bring that up now is because this particular script is an interesting example of how it could be cool to read what our original thought process was and then to see the finished result. Because I would say even the script that is like followed the most closely to the final video has some changes, and mostly like I just like cut out certain lines because, Andrew, especially when you're writing these, you do such a good job of like writing for a reader. Like you're a really good writer for like articles, for books, and that's a little bit of a different communication than for a video. So every once in a while I'll cut lines out because they'll be redundant when you're, combining what you're writing with the visual. And I feel like once you combine it with the visual, you get it the first time and you don't need so many examples. So even like the video that follows the closest to the script has changes, but this particular one is an example, and there have been some others like this where it's, like you said, completely different, the opener and the closer. And I think that, I don't know, I think that might be interesting for people. Do you want to like talk through what exactly the original idea was? Because they're never going to get to see that version of the video.
Yeah, I mean, why not while we're here? Let me pull it up just so I have it exactly right, because I don't want to go just from memory.
You'll have to look at the version history, because I rewrote it for the way it is now.
You monster.
Well, that's the beauty of Google Docs.
Everyone comes to podcasts for the great Google Doc breakdown. You got to go to the article history. Like, this is what people want to hear. Here, Dan. Well, walk me step by step to go through the version history. So,
well, you're going to go to search and you're going to type in history.
And then it's going to tell you where to click to see it.
Wait,
I mean,
what?
If you go to help at the top, help, and then there's a search bar. Yeah. And you type in history. Hopefully somewhere there's somebody listening to this in the exact predicament of trying to figure out how to see their version of history.
Doubles as a tutorial. Where's the Where's the version history where I'm not a total failure? Does that does that exist? Wait, this can't be right. There's one for August of 2019.
You wrote this in August?
There's no way. Did I start it then?
I think you did, actually, because
Holy, how long have we been sitting on this?
we've been sitting on it since August. Almost a year?
Yeah, I had like a rough note outline. Remember? It was just like I had a rough outline on just John Mayer.
Yes, I remember now, this was before Irishman, like this was early. This was because I started doing Why It's Great, like we're coming up on a year now, like in July of 19. And I think when we first started doing this, it's like there's a couple things that me and you just love more than anything that we have to talk about. We did one about Buffy, and John Mayer was on that list. And there's more that we haven't done. I did one on Pearl Jam. So, like, we're knocking those out here and there. So I think it makes sense that you would have started one for John Mayer.
For the 0 people who care about how I approach essays, I can't write an essay until I have a quote unquote log line or thesis or premise, which is basically like the thesis in a sentence or the main argument in a sentence or in just like a catchy word compound or whatever. So I have a bunch of like me trying to come up with that. So like John Mayer is a library of sound, which ended up being a line in the video because I just like that idea. Like he is a sonic history within himself. And then I had this really pretentious angle that I couldn't ever really make it work, but the reducible complexity of John Mayer.
I remember that. That was what it was when you first told me about it.
Yeah. Because I really do think his songs are so complex, but they can be reduced to their more basic parts and still work. Yep. So like you can take a really complex arrangement John Mayer has in a song, but the song still works acoustic with no other instruments. And he builds songs from like the floor up. Most of the time, not always.
Something he does that I've noticed, and this isn't a huge revelation because if you've ever seen him do anything live, you notice this, but he will play a song acoustic and not sing the melody. Like the melody he will sing is completely different than what he put on the recording. Have you ever noticed that?
I've noticed that he really experiments with live performances with the way the tune is carried.
Yeah. Like you're going to
discover that in regards to music. I'm not as articulate with describing how music works. So
yeah,
you'll hear it in the video. You're Gonna Live Forever in Me. He goes all over the place. That's not how he recorded it, and there's just a lot of live versions of his stuff if you find on YouTube where he doesn't sing the same melody live that he sings on the recording, and that's a testament to the songwriting because you would think a song is the chords and the melody. I mean, we all know super famous songs, and it's the melody. You know, like this land is your land, this land is my land for California.
What a bop, dude! That's whatever. Slap.
That's like it's the melody. That's the song. But in the case of John Mayer, it's more like the vibe and the lyrics. And that's what he can shift those things around, the melodies around, and like the actual chords, make them jazzier chords, make them like super intricate little runs, or just the bare bones chords. And then he can keep a straight melody or go all over the place. But it's that vibe that he creates plus the lyrics, and that's what makes his songs so good.
Well, yeah, and that's what makes listening to him live such a treat, because you never know what version of a song you've heard 1,000 times you're going to get, and he like never plays it. I mean, he'll play the traditional way, the recorded version, but there are so many different versions of his songs done live in different styles and different, either full band, no band, like songs that I'm like, there's no way this song would work with no band, still work. And it's just like, how do you strip down? Like, there are so many songs I know that I love, like in pop music or any type of music, that like you just can't play without the computer sounds or a band. And like his songs work, just him and a guitar or him and a piano. It's just, but I found the version history. So real quick, for those who've seen the video, it opens with that shot of me typing, and basically the tension point is this video came about because I was struggling to write essays, and I was like, I just feel like I'm writing essays to write an essay, and nothing what I'm writing is like coming from a place of passion. And so I wanted that to be the opening tension point. So it's like Patrick Willems releases another banger, Nerd Writer's always solid, just right. Like all these people, I'm like, I want something like that, and that's never the right approach. And so I wanted to visualize the conflict between the artifice of trying to force a piece of work or art or argument into existence, like the artificiality of forcing that, versus the discovering the truth. So how we visualized that was open on Andrew is in his room or office, whatever. He sits before his laptop, unsure of what to type. His face is awash in the bright white of an empty Google Doc. And then it's my voiceover that's pretty much similar to what's in the final video. Basically, here I am again trying to write something so good, people are impressed, but I can't, blah, blah, blah. Then shot of Andrew typing, which ended up in the video. And in this video, I will demonstrate how David Lynch films breakfast better than any living director, which is a joke, but also that could be a video essay, because anytime David Lynch puts breakfast in any of his films or shows, it looks so delicious, and I can't explain why. I don't know. Then I say, it all feels dishonest. Pull back to reveal that Andrew is not in his room. Him and his desk sit before the green screen. So it's like a close-up on me with my computer, and then there's a green screen background of my room. So with that tight of a close-up, conceivably, we could have had you fooled that I was in my office. Pull back, you see the full desk, and then cut the green screen overlay so you just see the actual green screen to, oh, this is artificial. He's faking it. It's a green screen, right? And then how I had it written was distracted with it until he plays the first chord of John Mayer's No Such Thing, which you play in the video, and then boom, trigger. So just that really short, brief visual representation of the conflict between the artifice of forcing something to create and the artificiality of forcing something to create something, and the discovery of truth. So then it is mirrored and reversed at the end, where at the very end, cut to Andrew enters the studio once more. I sit at the desk, the bare bones of the studio, through a transition. I love this line that I wrote. Through a transition that Dan will have to figure out. The green screen setup turns into the real room. So then it's a transition from the green screen to me actually being in the room, and then the camera can show that physically by me moving around to, oh, I've actually discovered the truthfulness of what I was trying to write. And I'm still kind of bummed we couldn't create that, but it's the actual argument within this video that matters ultimately, and we did capture that.
Yeah, and I'm a little bit happy that I didn't have to somehow figure out how to make that happen.
It would have been so cool, though.
Yeah, I mean, absolutely it would have been. And I think that what we ended up with, and this was how I probably just like forced meaning in where it didn't need to be, but once I realized we had to do it in COVID, I put a subtle nod to that change. So the video has a bit of a like a narrative arc, he starts by typing on the computer and talking about how artificial it feels. And so at the end, that's why he's writing in a notebook, to just kind of like subtly say one was fake, artificial, and cold, and the other is tactile and real. And and if nobody like gets that, it's my fault. It's probably too subtle. But I mean, hopefully there's some people out there that can kind of just like pick up on that, or at least hearing it now can appreciate that we are putting that kind of thought into what we're doing.
People will be able to feel it, like they'll feel that change at the end, but they probably wouldn't be able to put words to it, which is how most arcs are, like honestly.
Right.
I do want to mention I'm trying to think of parts of what we talk about with John Mayer in the video that we could elaborate on here that we couldn't really in the video because it's not a 2-hour video.
Right.
I was thinking about it. I was like, I want to talk about this because we barely touched on it, but now I can't remember what it was. Oh, I know. I really want to elaborate on, there's a key, I guess, development in the video where we really hammer in on his voicelessness. And
right.
I like how you alluded visually to the controversy John got in, because it really saved voiceover work. We didn't have to explain it. You could just cut to John Mayer was blah, 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 and he got in trouble for this. It's like, okay, we know. And then he loses his voice. And I mentioned it real quick that when John got his voice back, he really could have tried to do everything in his power to be accessible and likable and get the fans back, which is something that we couldn't elaborate in the video. But something I love about John Mayer is that another aspect of writing the truth is there's the part of just like being honest in your lyrics, but I think another part of John's honesty as an artist comes with just his choices and the fact that he is a library of sound, and his discography is so all across the board and all across the charts in regards to the genre, the production, the like lyrical focus. Someone who's trying to play to the crowd, someone who's trying to just get the hit, isn't going to have a discography like that.
Right.
You know what I'm saying?
Absolutely.
So, like, the fact that he, post-Continuum, his most celebrated album, like, critically and from the fans, he gets in trouble with the things he says about his dating history. He then loses his voice. And all the fans are like, make Continuum Part 2. Play some more blues. We want the trio to play forever. And What does he do? He moves
to Montana.
Well, Battle Studies was still around the time of him getting in trouble.
Battle Studies, yeah.
Even Battle Studies was nope, I'm not going to do Continuum again. But then even after Battle Studies, he loses his voice. He gets in trouble. The fans are like, we want more blues. He makes Born and Raised. He goes full Bob Dylan. And it's just like, that's a guy being honest, because you listen to his interviews and he goes, I moved to Montana and I listened to nothing but Bob Dylan and I got inspired. It's like, that's a guy going, I don't care if I get the hits or not. I need to bear the musical truth. This is what I want to make.
And see, I think that's the marker of a true great artist. And I think those are much more rare, because it's like they get famous in spite of their tactics, not because of them. And I feel like, 9 people out of 10 are getting famous because they're doing all the things you're quote unquote supposed to do. Some studio exec is behind all their choices, telling them what to wear and barely giving them creative control, and they become, giant pop stars, flash in the pan and gone. But the true artist, and it makes me think about, recently Jerry Seinfeld was on Howard Stern, and they were talking about how Jerry has always like stayed true to himself, like very similarly, and his brand of comedy is very specific. He has a very specific way he does it, and Howard was just kind of commenting on like, you tend to do things your way, and then Jerry stops him and he's like, but how else could I do it? Because the fans don't want me to write more jokes like my old jokes. They want me to do what I do, what I think is funny, what serves me. And he's like, I'm never going to do another show again because I can't top Seinfeld. So why try to do Seinfeld Part 2? And once Comedians in Cars is done, I'm not going to do, another version of that. He wrote B Movie and then never wrote another movie because it's like he doesn't give the people what they want. He gives the people what he wants and what they don't know they want yet. And I feel like that's what you were saying about John Mayer. John Mayer, is true to himself. He follows where his internal compass is leading him. And he gives people what they don't even know that they want yet, instead of chasing the hottest trends. And I'm realizing, Pearl Jam does that. And a lot of the comedians, writers, artists, musicians, actors, directors that I love, I'm realizing now they tend to be the people that do that.
Yeah. Because it's his own musical output is a reflection of his musical journey as a listener and as someone who's a super fan. And that's another thing about John Mayer. He's a great quote unquote conversationalist. He's really articulate in a unique way in his interviews. So I just love watching his interviews because he's just a really thoughtful, introspective guy. And he's really put a lot of thought into just pretty much everything creative. And when you listen to his interviews, he is a mega fan of music just in general. He is a fan. And I've discovered so many artists that I love now just from his Instagram recommendations. Like Maggie Rogers, Alec Benjamin, just Madison Cunningham, just people he'll plug on Instagram. Be like, this person's great. And I'm like, that's a stamp of approval because if John likes it, he has great taste. He's never recommended an artist or a song that I was like, ugh. He has his own honest journey with music as a listener. And so that honesty reflects in his own writing because he's listening to everything across the board, pop, obscure folk, blues, he's listening to it all. And so it comes out in his music.
Yep. Yeah. He has a great line in his interview with Beats, with Zane Lowe, where he says something to that effect, where he says that he's trying to reconcile the music he loves and the music he makes. And I felt like that is such an insightful comment because we've all seen artists go through a transformation of sound that goes really well, really authentically, but also we've seen artists that do that and it's really bad. And you can just tell they're just chasing some trend, trying to sound maybe even like music they love, but they can't quite sell it. And I think it's really wise for John to realize that when he sits down and he's inspired, he has a feeling inside that he wants to communicate, that music comes out sounding a certain way. And even with such a wide discography we've been talking about, he still does have somewhat constraints. And he's wise to know where those boundaries are, even as wide as it is. And to reconcile, you know what? I love whatever genre, and that may not be one I can go into. Gosh, he is just one of the greatest, man. I just really like what he's been able to do.
Yeah, I know I'm super excited for whenever he can. The last year he's been teasing like an album's in the work, but then COVID hit, and I think that really like made him reevaluate the music, because I know he was really ramping up in the studio from what I understand from like his comments on Instagram. But and the last thing I heard about what he was working on, he was like, "You're either going to think this is my best work or you're going to hate it." And I was like, "That's what I want to hear."
Yeah,
that's what I want.
Well, I mean, from the singles he's been releasing, they're like fantastic.
Well, and another thing is to the point that he's very thoughtful is that when he released I Just Don't Feel Like, I don't know, I think it was iHeartRadio. He did some
I guess
performance.
I Just Feel Like.
Yeah, I guess I Just Feel Like. He did some performance where he played it and then he got interviewed afterward, and someone was asking him about it, like the recent singles he'd been releasing, and he said something to the effect of, one, the song itself is a reflection of like dealing with the current cultural moment and like how things change so fast. But he was like, because information and the way people think about the world and people's opinions are changing day to day, he's like, I don't know how you work on an album for a year and then wait a year to release it and have that album speak to the present. He's like, it's impossible now. You can't, because you can only capture it right now and get it out. And I think he's describing a struggle in art in general is like, I mean, like if you were writing a story end of last year, early this year, and then it's going to release 2021 and it takes place in 2020, that story is going to be null and void because you're writing about it. Because the 2020 you wrote about was during a pre-pandemic, and now it's like, how can you read a story about 2020 that's not an alternate universe? Because you're going to be like, you need to talk about this. This is huge.
You'd have
this
to
has
majorly
changed the
rewrite
landscape.
it.
Things are happening so fast, and even you take away COVID, like people's opinions, movements, internet trends and movements, like how do you speak to the moment? And so, but I think the solution is you have to really dig deep and speak to the human condition, because the core of the human condition is always the same. It's just dressed differently. And the problems can be rooted to something deep and fundamental, but the problems are also usually dressed in something new. And I think that's the challenge for artists today is like, man, you got to really dig deep to the core of like the human problem.
Right. Because the minute you go, COVID-19, put that in your song, that's going to be relevant for a week. Okay, maybe like 6 months, but nobody's going to talk about it again. But if you write a song about loneliness, that's going to hit now, but it's going to hit 10 years from now. Especially if you do it right. The other thing that makes me think is like, John has so many songs that he's never released. And like I hear, you hear him talk about albums he's working on, and then nothing comes of it. Like I remember even a couple years ago when he was releasing Search for Everything, he said something like, this year I'm going to release the most music I've ever released. And then he just dropped an album that was very typical amount of songs. And you're like, that's not what you promised. And so it makes me think like, and maybe he's even written an entire album worth of new songs for 2020 that he's not end up going to release. It makes me think of Neil Young. Are you like following what he's doing right now? So he's been releasing albums like the past couple years that he recorded in the 70s and never put out. And he's releasing them now. And like he has one that just released a couple weeks ago, and it is amazing. It's like he recorded it mid-70s as like a follow-up to Harvest, like is one of his most famous albums. And he recorded 2 albums simultaneously with like completely different feels. And he had a listening party, and they listened to both albums back to back. And the one that was like a little bit of a departure from his sound, it sounded a little bit more rock, he thought that one was like the one to release. And so he decided this other one that sounds a little bit more like classic Neil Young acoustic harvesty vibe to just not release it. Plus it was like more personal. But releasing it now, it's like I don't know, it's amazing. It's like the music has a whole new meaning. Makes me wonder if John, like someday 20 years from now, is going to be like, hey, here's an album I recorded in 2020.
Yeah. Dude, yeah. As a high school kid who just excavated YouTube for every and any John Mayer song possible, there's so many songs he never ended up recording that I can tell why they didn't get recorded, but they're unpolished, but there's like something so just like unadulteratedly beautiful about them. So there's like, I'm going to get super nerdy. So if you,
yeah.
So there's a song John played live once called Hotel Bathroom Song.
It's the best one.
Because it's not the actual title of the song. He just said before he played it, I wrote this song in the hotel bathroom. So we don't really know what the song is actually called, but it's beautiful.
It's gorgeous. And well, I was going to say something. He has a line in one of his albums, one of his songs that says something about on the bathroom floor. Do you know what I'm talking about?
Right. Yeah.
Maybe it's Shadow Days. And I wonder, like, if he's referencing the event that happened that made him write Hotel Bathroom Song.
Yeah, I don't know.
But in a different way. Anyway, go ahead. Keep listing your songs.
There's a Hotel Bathroom Song. There's Lost at Sea, which he plays at one of the Berkeley clinics.
But he released that as a bonus or something, didn't he?
I don't know if it ever got an official release. Like a couple of his B-sides did get like official releases, like Tracing, which is a good, like not on an album, but there's a recorded version. There's a bop off of Continuum that's a B-side, Can't Miss This Plane or something.
Oh yeah, Can't Take This Plane. Yeah.
Plane. Dude, that song is pretty good. But then there's something really cool. He had a song from way in the early days called The Hurt that he would play a lot that he never recorded, and fans would always be like, play The Hurt. And then he found a way to incorporate, like, I don't know, like a part of that song into Friends, Lover, or Nothing. So like the end of Friends, Lover, or Nothing, he straight up like plays like the chord progression of The Hurt.
Really?
Always talking. He never thought The Hurt worked, but he did find a home for a piece of the song. And he always thought that was really cool.
That's like
anything other than yes is no. Anything other than stays go.
I think it's that part, yeah.
Yeah. I don't know The Hurt song. I've never heard of that.
Yeah, listen to The Hurt. It's actually pretty good. If you find a version, it's going to be from like early John Mayer too. That's what's.
I have a version of a song he did. I think he might have recorded it during the Inside Once Out sessions because it kind of has that sound, and it's oh man, how does it go? It goes sometimes
I wish that I was the weather.
Yes. That's from like before he got discovered and like when he was playing in Eddie's Attic in Atlanta.
Happy to talk of the day.
That song, the lyrics are really, really cute but clever.
Yeah.
He says, "I wish that I was a cold beer." No, I wish so that you would always. Oh, what was it? But the weather, I like the weather. Like, I wish I was the weather. So you'd bring me up in conversation forever and stuff like that.
And when it rains, I'd be the talk of the day.
And then when it rains, it'd be the talk of the day. Yeah. And then he says something about being a cold beer.
What that song is called.
You'd always keep me near, or something like that. I know exactly what you're talking about.
Yeah.
Dude, that was so good. But at the same time, that is very of the day of its time.
What is it like? Something like that.
It's like this. This goes like this. sometime. I wish that I was the weather. You bring me up in conversation. I don't know where it goes from there.
Yeah,
That is
something
good.
like that. Yeah, I had an old recording of that I like burned off YouTube way back in the day when I was in high school. From like it even said like live at Eddie's attic. That's the only reason I remember it. Yeah, that song's really good. He's just, man, that's another thing is I've always I've always respected that, like he has that rare artist ability of kill your darlings. It's like that dude probably has so many songs that he didn't record that you and I would like kill to have that song.
Yep.
Like we would kill to be able to write it. And he's like, it can be better. It can be better.
Yep.
And I'm going to kill it.
I used a lot of footage from the Where the Light Is, because like that was the best quality thing I could get my hands on. All these like clips from YouTube, they're just like, you know, barely DVD quality. And I'm like, I want something that looks better. Yeah. So, but it just made me watch that again. And at one point he's about to play In Your Atmosphere, and he says something like, here's a song that I wrote a long time ago and it fell out of favor with me. And that's the way he put it. And I was like, oh, that's interesting. And he said, and it recently fell back into favor, so I'm going to play it for you. And he starts playing it, and like after the opening like little riff, you hear like a small segment of that audience go, yeah! And I'm like, they knew about this song somehow.
Teasing songs live, yeah.
And that song is incredible.
Yeah, that's
How
the
could that
favorite
song-
that's never been officially on an album besides the live CD.
But that song is so good. It's like, how did that fall out of favor with him? And if that quality of stuff falls out of favor with him, like what else does he have?
Well, here's another thing that I've always found interesting as a fan. I dabble with the guitar, you know, just for fun. I don't have like the pure skill set. So I would love to hear your perspective, but being a high school kid teaching yourself guitar, trying to learn John Mayer songs, I always would learn a song and then like, it's almost like archaeology where I'd go, wait a second. Parts of Something's Missing are in the same tuning as In Your Atmosphere. And I could I would be playing Something's Missing and go, wait a second. I could see how you could easily go to In Your Atmosphere from here.
Yeah.
And I'm like, is that how he did it? Or like, there are so many songs where I'll be like, wait a second. You know, like, how did he get this from this? Like, I can't remember what it is, but My Stupid Mouth, I feel like I feel like My Stupid Mouth comes from no. There's a song on his pre-record label release, Inside Wants Out, that plays very similar to My Stupid Mouth, and I'm like, were these like sister songs?
It's Love Soon.
Love Soon. They're
Yeah,
very
it has the
similar,
same
right?
strum pattern.
Yeah. I'm like, and I love that kind of like musical archaeology of you're digging through it and you're like, oh, am I discovering a history of a like song discovery here? Like,
Yeah, I mean,
fun.
as somebody who like has written songs myself and is a guitar player, like that's exactly how it happens, because I think somebody like John is much better about this than me, but most guitar players get into like a rut where like every time you pick up the guitar, you tend to play the same kinds of things. And over years, you tend to like, you know, maybe not play the exact same thing, but use similar voicings. Like I always play a G chord this way because there's 3 or 4 different ways to play a G, you know, and John uses his thumb, and like you just, every time you watch him, yeah. And I think John probably does a really good job of, you know, using scales or like practicing different licks and just listening to a wide variety of music that those ruts, like he probably still gets in them, but then just breaks out of them and needs something new. And so you can kind of see those quote unquote ruts as you go through his career, where you go, this was that tuning phase. You know, he writes 15 songs in that tuning and keeps 5 of them, and then plays and records 2 of them. it's like,
correct me if I'm wrong, but I feel like a lot of his songs are in the same key, but his vocal range isn't that.
Well, yeah,
Dude,
that too.
like, aren't most of them like in the key of D?
a lot of them are on D, but not all of them. I think what it is like I don't know. There's a lot of different ways to write a song. Like sometimes you're just like playing in one key and then you hear a note and then you start writing a melody maybe higher than your voice. So then you change the key to fit that melody with your voice. You know what I mean? Like you don't necessarily have to just always play. Because if you did that, then all your melodies, they'd be in the same range, but they'd be like the same notes. Whereas you can change the key, but like this is getting really technical. But like,
Go for it.
on one key, it might be like the third of the chord, like, the first, third, and the fifth. So in the key of C, you might be singing around like E, the note E a lot. Whereas that key of E would be the fifth in the key of A. You know what I'm saying?
So if you're
totally. Yep.
Some people know what I'm talking about. Anyway,
yeah, when you have that octave
weeds.
resonant on the flux capacitor, I love that. Yeah.
Oh, anyway, gosh.
Yeah, the Optimus Prime octave note.
Okay, Brian Regan.
But real quick, speaking to like discovering how he perhaps could have written a song while playing the guitar. That's an interesting thing about the medium of music is it really allows you as a fan to enter into the artist's work in a way you can't do. Like I can't like I can open up a Stephen King book and touch the print, but that's not what he did, and I could write word for word, the man in black fled across the desert and the gunslinger followed. But there's something about actually playing the song that you love so much, and like you have that tactile, personal experience with it,
Right.
And like you can almost like get into the artist's mindset. Like you can play around with his stuff and be like, oh, did he do this and make this connection? Which you really can't do with any other medium in the same way. Like you can parody Martin Scorsese's video style and film it a lot the same way, but it doesn't play the same as like, oh, I really love this song, and you play on the guitar, and it feels like you are becoming one with the piece of art that you love so much. It's a really intimate way to be a fan of an artistic medium that you really can't find anywhere else.
Yeah, like I've never thought of it or described it in those terms, but you're exactly right. And maybe that's why music's always been my first love. Like it was a way to connect with all the artists that have been my favorite, that have inspired me. And I can learn to do what they're doing. And then in doing so, hopefully, like, be able to write my own stuff, find my own voice, but using tools that I picked up from them along the way. Yeah. It's great. It's like, an artist you admire is inspiring when like you're doing a podcast about them and you can't not pick up your guitar. Like I'm just compelled. I'm like holding it because I'm like, John Mayer makes me want to play this. You know what I mean?
All right. Well, maybe you should play us out with a little medley of John Mayer, and we can send him home.
Oh my. Well.
Let's see. How about a request?
For a second, I like paused and waited for an audience to be like, "Play this one."
Freebird.
Do you know Clarity?
Clarity. Oh.
Off the record, Heavier Things.
Something like that, isn't it?
Yeah.
I worry, I weigh 3 times my body. I worry, I threw my fear around. This morning, is a calm I can't explain. Rock candy's melted, only diamonds now remain. Ooh, 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 ooh. By the second of time, look around this small.
Something like that. I'm not playing it perfectly.
And now I wait to find if this will last forever. And then we'll pay no mind. It won't, cause it won't, cause it can't. It just can't. It's not supposed to.
Oh, there you go. You're doing it the real way.
But not very well. Yeah, that super funky chord, whatever that is. That's like almost impossible to get back fingers in place.
Yep.
Well, that's the...
I think that's a podcast first, where the two hosts in the podcast were trying to figure out how John Mayer songs played and playing two different guitars at the same time.
This is where it all started for me. That's it. Yeah, dude, he's the best. Oh, there's this one. Oops.
Me and all my friends were all misunderstood. Said we stand for nothing and there's nowhere we ever could. Everything that's going wrong with the world and those who lead it. Say that we don't have the means to rise above and beat it. So we keep waiting for the world to change. We keep on waiting for the world to change.
And we are still waiting, John. We are still waiting.
Know that the fight ain't fair, so we keep on waiting on the world to change.
Yep.
I think we thoroughly explained why John Mayer's great.
I think so. I think anyone who used to hate John Mayer would listen to this and be like...
I think one last thing we need to do before we end this, if for some reason you made it this far on the video and on the podcast, if someone's not really a fan of John Mayer or hasn't dived into his work, what would you recommend as a starting point? Or how would you recommend getting into it?
I think it would depend on who the person is, because John Mayer, like we've discussed, has such a wide range of what he can do. I would say, like, if the person is a fan of pop, then I'd probably start them on, like, New Light, Still Feel Like Your Man, some of that newer stuff he's putting out that's, like, got those kind of electronic beats. If the person is a fan of country, I'd start them on Born and Raised. If the person is, like, a fan of rock, I'd probably start them on the Try stuff, the blues.
Oh, dude, that Try album.
The Try album is incredible. Like, if the person is a musician, I'd probably start them on the Try album, because it's like, it's incredible. The other thing I might say, well, I do one more, and that's, if the person is just a general music fan, I'd probably tell them to start with the Where the Light Is CD, because you get to see a little bit of everything that he can do.
Yeah. Where the Light is like a buffet platter. You get a little sampling of everything. And I think you get a sense of his personality. I think that's really a key, is watch a concert or a live performance that you really get to engage with him as like a person too. And on that end, dude, watch his Instagram show, Current Mood. So listen to Where the Light Is, get a sense of the music, but then watch some Current Mood on Instagram or on YouTube, and you'd really get a sense of like who John is as a person, and like his sense of humor and his relationship to other artists is all on display in Current Mood. So I highly recommend that.
What would you say, last question, lightning round, your favorite song from a lyrical perspective, or maybe even just a favorite line?
I'd have to think, man. I think, man, just from a lyrical perspective, I can't at this point narrow it down, but I'll just say this. I think songs that mean a lot to me just personally. Clarity, which I asked you to play. I love that song. That song's really just about like the struggle to accept the moment and acknowledge the moment. And when you do finally get into the moment's gone. And it was like, you know, like as someone who overthinks, I think like how John is, Clarity is just like, oh man, that's a song of like, just like stop, be right here in the moment. And then the moment's always just melting away before you can appreciate it. Something's Missing. I just really dig Something's Missing. But I think, trying to think later stuff. You know what I think is a really beautiful, vulnerable song and written really well? Dear Marie.
That's a great song.
I think Dear Marie is just hard on the page, just well written, well composed song. Like,
Tell Me, Do You Still Believe in Me?
Yeah,
Dear Marie.
Just like, I got that dream, but you have a family. The song opens up with him Google a girlfriend from high school and finding her and realizing that she has a family and has love, and he's this successful musician, but he's alone. And it's just like, oh, I'd pick Dear Marie. Dear Marie.
So for me, the song Wheel has a special place in my heart. That song is amazing. And I have a pretty special memory with that too. But
one of my favorite lyrics is from Wheel, where if you stop long enough to wave goodbye, and you stay waving, you might just find that you wave hello again. And I just thought that was a great image of someone waving goodbye, and how waving goodbye and waving hello are the same thing.
Yeah.
And it's like, if you just stayed there and kept waving goodbye, you might just find, if you give it time, you'll wave hello again.
Yeah.
And there's a thing about seasons in that as well, and just the whole idea of the cyclicalness of life. That's the way this wheel keeps working out. Like, it's fantastic. But I also would probably say, of his newer stuff, my favorite song is You're Gonna Live Forever in Me. It just just gets me. And that's one of those songs that I think is just so cleverly written. It opens up Great Big Bang and Dinosaurs. Like, what an amazing opening line. Fiery rain and meteors. It all ends, unfortunately. It's a fantastic song. Well, this has been the Why It's Great patron-only podcast, and we've been talking about John Mayer. It's always a pleasure when we get to chat, Andrew. It's too few and far between. We need to do it more. I'm glad you're enjoying your new job at the bank, and we'll keep trucking.
Hopefully we'll get a video out sooner than, it's been like over a month.
I know, dude.
So hopefully
my life has been nuts.
I know,
as I'm sure everyone's has been.
So hopefully we can do it in at least a month.
I've got 3 more in the pressure cooker.
Ooh, there you go.
So,
well, I'm excited for this one on Friday. If you've already seen the video, it's out. Share it, post it on Facebook, Instagram. Like, please get it out. I'm begging you. We work too hard on these things. It's so weird, man. Like, some build up over time, like Ad Astra is finally getting a lot of play. The Buffy video got a lot of really good initial plays. But then the Parent Story video, which I think is so well made, is just still hovering around like 200 views, and it kills me because I think that video is one of our leanest, most efficient videos.
Yeah, it might be. It's up there in terms of our best one, in terms of like well made. It'll find its audience, I think. I'm pretty... I don't know. It's one of those things where, like, we just need a couple more videos to, like, really hit, like Irishman and beyond, and then people will go back and find those other, like, awesome videos we have. But this has been the Ramble podcast with...
one way to end this, Dan, and we're going to wave goodbye.
And we just might find
if we give it time.
We'll wave
hello again. And if you're listening to just audio,